Stephen, you know I like to talk about Brexit.
I don't.
One quick question. £40 billion lost revenue per year from leaving the European Union. That would fill so many holes, wouldn't it?
Now, in a world where people speak the truth, they would be able to recognise that all the promises made from the Leave EU campaign 10 years ago have completely failed to appear. Whether that's hospitals or schools, cheaper food, clothing, or
cheaper bras,
cheaper housing, cheaper mortgages, cheaper rent, and that everything will be better in farming, fishing, and construction and steel, ultimately leading to a better life for everyone in the UK. Whereas in fact the only things that have gone up are hate crimes, violent protests, and increasing unrest in Northern Ireland. Essentially you were told that you were going to get some sort of brand new sports car, and instead you got a broken engine. And it's not exactly as if they don't know that, because obviously they've done impact reports. Oh, by the way, we're not allowed to see one. Here's the government response on the impact reports.
The government has no such plans. On the 19th of May, the government announced a new strategic partnership between the UK and the EU, which will make the UK safer, more secure, and more prosperous. The government has no plans to hold a public inquiry into the impact of the UK's exit from the European Union. The government was elected with a clear and emphatic mandate to strengthen our relationship with the EU. Since taking office, we have reset our relations with European partners to improve the lives of working people and make the people across the UK safer, more secure, and more prosperous. On the 19th of May, the Prime Minister welcomed the Presidents of the European Commission and Council to Lancaster House for the first ever summit between the UK and the EU. At the summit, he announced a deal with the EU which will deliver on what the British public voted for last year. This deal is good for bills, good for jobs, and good for our borders. The full deal, as agreed at the summit, can be found on gov.uk.
And that was from the Cabinet Office. So bearing that all in mind, what did Pat McFadden have to say?
We just concluded a really good trade agreement with the European Union.
Oh really, a good trade deal? That's interesting, because I would ask whether or not it's good as anything that was promised in the Brexit campaign. And the answer is going to be a no from me. Not a single promise has been kept from anything that was offered during the Brexit campaign. And then, is it as good as any deal that we had when we were in the EU? And you're going to get another answer from me of a categoric no, it's not. And you might go, X, how can you be so sure? And I would go, well, just look at Northern Ireland. It's steaming ahead of the rest of the UK, with the exception of London.
Northern Ireland is in the unbelievably special position, unique position in the entire world, European continent, in having privileged access, not just to the UK home market, which is enormous, 5th biggest in the world, but also the European Union single market. Nobody else has that. No one. Only you guys, only here. And that is the prize. I can tell you, when I go around the world and talk to businesses, they know that. They're like, that's interesting. If you guys get this sorted, then we want to invest in Northern Ireland, because nowhere else does that exist. That's like the world's most exciting economic zone. And one of the things that is top of Secretary of State's in...
But wait, there's more.
That will get rid of a lot of the cost and the bureaucracy and the delays for people.
He makes it sound like it's a big improvement, but it doesn't solve a lot of the problems created by Brexit. It doesn't solve the border friction. It doesn't solve the fact that services have lost access to the EU. It doesn't sort out travel rights and freedom of movement. It doesn't solve the fact that the pound has devalued, or that UK and EU trade volumes have fallen, or exporters are facing new red tape and compliance costs. Many small businesses are still not able to export to the EU.
It's very hard to actually sell into Europe now, because you can't risk it being stuck at a post office somewhere, or the custom forms filled in incorrectly. So you just don't risk it.
I would say for me it only changed in the fact that I was able to sell in all Europe, and now I had to stop.
There is always now short of stuff in terms of all the sectors. Like, you hardly get stuff these days. I hear that there is so many business actually shut down because they didn't have enough stuff there.
We sell donuts, churros, chocolate strawberries. Been up here a couple of years now. and times are harder than ever.
It doesn't really solve any of the issues in Northern Ireland. It doesn't solve any of the issues created by the loss of EU programs. It doesn't solve the investment and business relocation that's taking place and still continues to take place. It doesn't stop the exodus of people and the brain drain that it's created. And labour shortages and skill shortages are still widespread across the UK. And finally, there's no solution to rising food prices. So what's the reason for them not wanting to go back into the EU? Have a listen.
We don't want to rerun the argument, but we came into office thinking we could get a better deal than the Tories had, and I believe we have met that promise, and it's one of 3 trade deals that we've concluded in recent months with the EU, the United States and India, and that's pretty good going. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, India, great trade deal. Can't deny that, it's better than nothing. As for the US-UK trade deal, it is sort of a trade deal, there's little to argue over that. However, it was strong-armed because Trump came out and threatened tariffs which brought Britain to the table to get a trade deal over the line. That is not a benefit of Brexit. But the thing is, if you combine all those trade deals, how does it compare to the UK leaving the EU?
And look, it is true that we trade a fair amount with both countries across goods and services, but look at this. Our trade with the EU totally dwarfs both of them. So should that be our priority?
As Anushka points out, it does mean that we'll be slightly constrained on trade deals with other countries. But it would add a couple of percent to our GDP compared to less than 0.5% from what you are proposing. At a time when people in Britain feel poor, why not be more ambitious?
This government has delivered the UK-India trade deal. I was in Scotland only on Monday listening to the Scotch Whisky Association about the huge benefits that the reduction of tariffs to export whisky into India are going to bring. We've seen the economic deal with the United States, which is going to save jobs. Just you take Jaguar Land Rover, but many other jobs as well.
Trump punches him in the face and he says, "Thank you very much. Please, sir, can I have some more?"
These are hugely important things that we can do with the independent trade policy. And we have always said...
But if you just look at that chart, you know, our trade with India, 43 billion. Our trade with the United States, 315 billion. Our trade with the European Union, 813
But just to say in respect of the European Union, what we are seeking to do on goods, whether it is in terms of agricultural products, food and drink, is to bring down trade barriers to increase that goods trade. That is precisely what the government is seeking to do, and that is what is in our national interest.
Except that's not what Brexiteers promised farmers. As you can tell, I'm pretty angry with the Labour government, but also the response of Pat here, who just really didn't seem to give a flying crap about how it's affected Britain.
Our main concern are like the workers. Finding staff is an absolute nightmare.
Do you think that Brexit has had an impact on your business?
I think it has, because it's made it... Look, for instance, with our churros, we use Spanish wheat flour. So for us to import it is more awkward and more expensive. That's £5 then, please.
Export, import, prices have gone up. People aren't coming over, the flights are more expensive, it's harder for them to get in here.
People, rather than coming to London, because they've now got to go for the hassle of getting into the country, so a lot of French people are going to Rome or somewhere else. We're, 4 weeks away from Christmas, and you've got empty stalls at the market, which is crazy.
But you know, as long as Farage is happy, Donald Trump's happy, and the racists are happy, I guess the rest of us can go f*** ourselves. Am I being a bit unfair to Pat and the Labour government? Should I give them a bit more time, or do we need to suffer for another decade? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to help out the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube subscribers. You keep this channel going and growing. If you can, hit that notification button so you never miss a video like this. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.